Welcome back to the class on international business communication. Today we will talk about re-entry. We have been talking about intercultural communication at different levels. We have discussed moving to another culture. The last time we talked about expatriation, which is when you move to another culture. Today we will talk about what happens when we come back to our own home countries and the challenges we have to face, the ways in which we deal with these situations. People may wonder why it is such a big deal, but it is a very big deal depending on the length of stay in the foreign country and depending on why you have been to a foreign country. It is a big deal. So let's discuss that. Before we go in, let's do some revision. What is expatriation? Please discuss amongst yourselves what expatriation is, why people move from one culture to another, what people do, what are their reasons for this movement, emotionally, personally, what influences these intercultural interactions, adaptation, assimilation and acculturation. We discussed these facets last time. Please also discuss what the barriers to intercultural adaptation are and how and why do people face these barriers and what they do in order to overcome these barriers and what they do in order to deal with these problems that arise after they move to another culture. And the reason I'm insisting on these things in the session on re-entry or repatriation as we call it is because repatriation and expatriation are not very different from each other. We go through similar cycles, we go through similar situations, we go through similar things when we talk about repatriation. Okay. Re-entry. Again, one theory that has discussed re-entry. It is the W curve theory of adaptation, the U plus U curve, where sojourners are laden with parent culture plus the intercultural experiences. What happens is that according to this theory, we make a U-turn when we go to one culture, and when we come back we make another U-turn and we come back to our own culture. So what happens is that when we move to another culture, we take our culture along with us. We carry bits and pieces of where we are coming from with us. We have been discussing this since the first lecture. We've talked about context. We carry our cultural context with us. We carry the contextuality of the culture with us. We carry our beliefs and ideals and morals and ways of being with us when we go to another culture. So what happens during the re-entry phase is that we go to this culture, we take whatever we have. There are some pluses and some minuses. We take some, we give back some. We add on some things from the different culture, and we come back to our country or to our culture with bits and pieces of our parent culture that we have held on to during our stay in the foreign culture, plus what we have acquired in the foreign culture comes back with us, and this combination comes back, and we feel that since we are coming back to our own culture, nothing should change. We feel that since we are just going back where we came from, we are the same, and the culture that we came from is the same, and that may not necessarily be true. The major issues we experience are the expectations from parent culture after a stint abroad. Now this is what we expect from the parent culture after we have been abroad. We expect things to be stationary. We feel that everything should be the way it was when we left it. We feel that how and why do we face problems after all? We face problems because we depend on our interpretations of the signals coming from our contexts to make sense of our environments, to deal with our environments, to behave in the environments. Now our interpretations depend so much on what we know about our environment. When we go from one culture to another, depending on the amount of contact we've had with our parent culture, we are not really sure about, we feel that it's there. We don't realize that we may have changed. We don't realize that consciously or subconsciously we may have taken on the attributes of the culture that we were in for a while as an expatriate. So our expectations from our parent culture are what they were when we left the culture, and when we come back, those expectations may or may not be realistic. The second major problem here is expectations of from ourselves, who I was when I went abroad, what I used to do, what I could do. Things have changed. You've grown as a person, you've aged. Time definitely has a role to play. Could have been several years. Your habits could have changed, your ways of living could have changed, your belief system could have undergone an evolution. Everything has changed, but we don't realize that. We feel, okay, when I'm at home, I'm a daughter. When I'm at home, I'm a parent. When I'm at home, I'm a spouse. When I'm at home, I'm this. When I'm at home, I'm that. When I go abroad, I'm a totally different person. When I go to work, I'm only a worker. That really doesn't happen. You feel, I'm just giving you two examples, an example from your daily routines probably. So when you go back on the same day, things are still the same. Some things may have changed depending on what has happened in your home, but then imagine that gap being several months or several years. Lots of things change. The way people view you as a person has changed. How you view yourself as a person has changed. It all ties in with your reasons for being abroad. You feel that, okay, I went abroad to get some training. Okay, I have taken this training. All through the training, you may have been thinking how you can apply that training to your work back home. You bring that training back home and you say, okay, this is where this training applies. And guess what? That situation doesn't exist anymore. And you're at a loss. And so we still think along the lines of where we were when we left that culture, and that becomes a problem. Expectations of self from significant others. What do people expect from me? Who am I to them? My colleagues expect that I have gone abroad and gained some expertise. So they expect that I will still be the same collegial person, but my work will outshine everybody else's. And what I feel is, since I've been abroad and these 10 other people have not, I should be given more importance. I should be given, my work should be treated better because I got an opportunity that the others did not. And so that could be one bone of contention. The other problem can come up when people start expecting things that may not necessarily be true. You go abroad, they expect changes in your work style, and guess what? You go abroad and you find that you are in an organization with similar people, with people from your own organization. They've taken their culture along with them. You have very little contact with, or at least very little significant contact with people from the host culture that you're in. You're still sitting in your office doing things the same way. You have international clients, but your day-to-day dealing is with people from your own home country. And maybe your social lives are different. But at the end of the day, your work style hasn't changed much, and you come back and you bring the same things back, and people wonder what happened, why did we send you abroad? And or your work style could have changed and you feel that you were old enough to keep your working style, your value systems the same, and you go abroad and everything just changes, and you come back and there's a mismatch between what people expect of you and what you expect of yourself and what you think people expect of you. Cultural contexts, again, what we think of the culture again changes. The culture that we are in changes with time, and we may or may not realize this. What returnees offer their organization? Why do people bring expatriates back, and what can returnees contribute to their organization? The first thing here is the returnee may have invaluable knowledge of certain regions, countries or markets with which the company or organization does business or compete. So this is one reason. You may have been sent abroad to study the market, to study the region, to study the competition in that new environment that your organization is setting up office in, or that your organization is venturing into, and they may expect you to bring back all that knowledge, and so that is what you're expected to bring back home. Returnees bring different, perhaps unique perspectives to issues, discussions, and problem solving. What happens is, when we are in a situation, we have one way of dealing with things and we keep doing things the same way. When we go abroad, we come back, we bring back a whole bunch of different ways of doing things. Why? Because we are in a different context and people just do things differently over there. I'll give you a small example, very small example. Again, this has nothing to do with how things happen abroad, or I'll give you an example of 2 states in India. Now, when you go to, say, a place like Ahmedabad, and I could be wrong. My experience is that when I go to Ahmedabad or in some areas of New Delhi, these people will show me a card. You want to take an auto rickshaw? The person will say, this is how much fare I will charge you. They will not ask you for a lump sum. They will say, okay, you want to go by meter? Great. If you want to go by meter, this is what we'll charge you. In a place in the olden part of New Delhi, or in the northern part of New Delhi, you go there and they'll ask you for a lump sum. They will not go by meter. They will say, and then you'll say, I'll report you to the police, and the person says, I'll run away. You come to Calcutta, the same thing. They will not go by meter. They will want to ask you for a lump sum of money for taking you from point A to point B. So, you go to different places. You are assuming that you are in that part of Ahmedabad, or say South Delhi, or some place where people go by meter. You come to these other places and you say, something's wrong. Why is the auto rickshaw driver asking me for a lump sum? I know it's not going to come to this much. Why is he asking me for this much? So there's some tiff, there is some tussle, but you realize that people are going to be different. They're going to be doing things differently, and at the end of the day, it all evens out. You come back, and once in a while, when people ask you for different things, you agree. It may not be right. I'm not saying it's legal or right. I'm just saying that it's a different way of doing things. Again, similar issues in high and low context regions. You go from a low context area to a high context area. You go to the an American comes to India, and Americans are used to doing things systematically. When they say 10 a.m., I will reach at a place at 10 a.m. For them, 10 a.m. means 9:59 a.m. to 10:01 a.m. That's it. They come to India, 10 a.m. means any time between 10 and 11 a.m., preferably closer to 11 a.m. We call it the Indian stretchable times at times. Again, you go to somebody's place, instead of immediately jumping onto the topic depending on where you are, you go to a rural area and the person offers you something to drink, asks you about your family, makes sure you're comfortable, and then starts talking about the deal and says, okay, we'll talk about the deal will be finalized, paperwork will be okay. Are you comfortable? I need to ensure that you are comfortable before we jump onto the deal. Work can get done. You see this, and you see this humane side of doing things, and you go back to the United States and everything is cut and dry and everything is very, very, goal oriented, and you feel, oh my God, but if somebody brings a humane perspective to things, you understand why they may be doing so. So that's what happens when a returnee, when a person goes outside the country, learns new things, he or she is expected to come back and bring a different perspective that people may or may not have thought of, or may not have felt comfortable with. So that is what this is. Returnee is likely to be more flexible in dealing with others and more open to new ideas, more likely to try something that has not been tried before. Again, when you go abroad, what happens is people send you abroad, or you are expected to bring back newer ways of doing things. You are expected to enlarge your horizons or expand your horizons, enhance your perspectives, not shrink them, not be firm on one thing. You are expected to learn newer ways of doing things, and in dealing with others, taking the example that I just gave you. So you're supposed to be flexible in dealing with others, more open to new ideas. Yes, people in different regions do things differently, big deal. I can give you an example of a movie. I wish I had the time to show you the whole movie here, but I cannot. The movie is called Spotswood, or it's also known by the name of The Efficiency Expert, and it's about this hotshot executive who goes abroad, and Anthony Hopkins is the executive, and he goes. I'm sorry, he doesn't go abroad. He goes to a rural area to revamp a moccasin factory, and he sees things being done differently, and initially he fails, and then slowly he starts learning newer ways of doing things, and he realizes that even within the United States things can be done differently. This is a whole different ball game. That's a very, very good movie that details this aspect, this switch from one cultural context to another cultural context, and the differences in the way people talk. I cannot screen that movie in the series of lectures, but I've given you the reference. If you can find the movie, it's great. You must watch it. So, okay. The returnee has increased tolerance for different ideas, behaviors and opinions, and hence an increased ability to work with or manage a culturally or ethnically diverse workforce. This is exactly what I'm saying. You get the exposure, you become tolerant to different cultures, you realize that dealing with different people requires a different kind of skill. You start seeing different things as different, not necessarily as good or bad, right or wrong. And after this training, after you come back, you are considered to be the expert in dealing with culturally and ethnically diverse groups and populations, and that really gives you this added edge over the others. You may have gained a lot of skills, but in addition to that, you've also gained this worthwhile experience, and this is what your organization expects from you when you come back home. What returnees can offer their organization? The returnee is more able to compromise, to be more humble and less rigid. The returnee understands home culture better, can step outside it and observe effectively how it influences decisions and other organizational behavior. You become the guinea pig. You take your culture to a different place, you get slammed with this cultural shock, you go through the pain of adjusting to a new culture, letting go of some of your beliefs, changing the way you do things, and then you come back and you bring back these shattered versions of your own culture with you, and then people expect you to understand your own home culture better, and they say, well, you went from here, what's the big deal? There is a big deal. We'll just talk about it. It is a big deal. You start understanding you are expected to understand your home culture and the other culture that you went to as an expatriate, and you are also expected to understand how your influences, how the influence of your own culture affected your decision making in the new culture that you were a part of. And after bringing all this understanding back, you are expected to contribute to your organization's working in a constructive manner. The returnee has more self-confidence, having survived and prospered in a challenging environment, you would hope. Assuming that you have survived and prospered, your self-confidence does go up and you've earned it. So that is what is expected of you. If you come back a winner, then that is really what is expected of you. We will also talk about the challenges that are faced by expatriates who return home after not having been able to do what they were expected to do, and that's a whole different ball game. It requires a whole different perspective. Some attributes affecting successful adjustment of expatriates. Some things that can affect the successful adjustment of expatriates. I'm talking about this in the class on re-entry because this has a bearing on how a person feels about himself or herself after coming back to their home culture. The first one here is job factors. Were you successful? Were you able to do what was expected of you? Were you able to perform the way you were expected to perform? Were you able to gel with the home country or not? Relational dimensions is the second one. So what was your were you able to establish relationships with your co-workers? Were you able to maintain those relationships? Have you brought back a network of professional contacts with you when you've come back to your home culture? What really are you, what is your value in the organization after having returned from this culture? What kind of relationships, or what hub of relationships have you brought back? Motivational state, again, this affects the successful adjustment of expatriates and repatriates, I should say. How motivated are you to come back? What are your reasons for coming back to your home country? Are those reasons in any way demotivating you? Have you come back as a success, or have you come back as a failure? So all of those things have an impact on how well you adjust, how well you accept the new culture. Family situation, again, movement, you'll say, well, it's all professional. I'm sorry, but then there are human resources issues. Professionalism is okay on one side, but then at the end of it, it's all about your family. It's all about how you feel in your situation. It's all about what you feel, how comfortable you feel in the new situation. You can't dissociate yourself from your family. And people will say, why not? We are social creatures. We are bonded with our families. We cannot dissociate ourselves completely from our families. So what our family has gone through, or what our family is expected to go through during this move as an expatriate and as a repatriate, will have an impact on our adjustment also. Has your spouse been able to find a job, a suitable job, if he or she wants to take on a job? Have your children been able to find good schools? Have you been able to find good accommodation? Have your health issues been taken care of? Have your children's health issues been taken care of? All of these things, and the ease with which you are able to communicate these things to your organization, and the ease with which your organization has facilitated the logistics revolving around your family situation, will have a bearing on how comfortable you feel as an expatriate and as a repatriate. And language skills, of course. If you go to a culture where you know the language, you feel more comfortable. Now again, we seem to have, it's all about perception. Many of us face this problem when we go abroad, especially to English speaking nations. People who have been educated in good schools and colleges in India, who have a good grasp over the English language within India, feel that they will gel properly with Americans or British or Australians, where people speak English. Guess what? It doesn't happen. You may be thinking that you are really fluent in a language, and you go to an English speaking country, and the way they pronounce words is very different. The way they pace their words is very different. The way they expect you to pace your words is very different, and you start wondering where you went wrong. For example, and again, this is something from my personal experiences. I'll share this with you. I was helping out with some HR issues when I was abroad, and the supervisor that I was working with asked me to submit a write-up in which I used the word learnt, L-E-A-R-N-T. Now, people who have been educated through the British system of education realize that we use learnt and learned, L-E-A-R-N-E-D. I will write these down just in case the audio is not proper. Okay, we use this and this in different situations, and if we have gone to good schools, we'll know the difference. And so when I used the word learnt with a T, my supervisors tried to correct my English, and I was taken aback, and I said, you don't know English. He said, no, there is no word as learnt. Luckily, his boss was British, Americanized, but naturalized I'm sorry, a British national who had become a US citizen. So he had been living in the United States for a long time. So he told this man who was my supervisor, he said, no, there is a word called learned. Now, this is a small thing. Or the way we pronounce schedule versus schedule. It is okay. This word is pronounced differently in by an American versus a British person. A British would say, a person belonging to England would say a schedule, and all the places that have had a British system of education will say schedule, and an American would say schedule. And so these are different ways of pronouncing the same things, and I'm talking about a country that uses a language that we have been greatly exposed to. It doesn't mean that we take on the tone and the accents of the new place. What I learned during my travel abroad and during my re-entry was that if I spoke clearly, if I enunciated my words clearly, if I pronounced correctly, and I spoke slowly, if the pace was slow enough for the person to understand what I was saying, I could be understood. I did not need to change my accent. And that is where we feel a big barrier. We were talking about factors affecting successful adjustment of expatriates and repatriates. This is what happens. The language that we have been used to speaking may or may not be very applicable in the context that we find ourselves in. You go from India to an English speaking country. Your primary mode of communication is English. You come back and you are expected to deal with the clients in a mixture of English and a regional language, or many times just in the regional language. Or you go from India to, say, Germany. You learn German, you start conversing in German. You come back, you may be using Hindi or Punjabi or Bengali or Oriya at home, but you come back, you don't do that at work, so you forget the terminologies. You come back and you get confused, and you may have learnt the German terminology, you may have learnt the Swedish terminology, but you don't remember the Oriya terminology, for example, or the Telugu terminology for certain things, and you feel at a loss. And the ease with which we can use the language that we are used to using will affect how comfortable we fit in, how comfortably we adjust as expatriates or even as repatriates. Because the way, and what we forget is that maybe we were using one type or one level of a language when we left. By the time we come back, especially people who were out of the country between, say, the year 1995 to, say, 2010, in these 10 years things have changed so much. What people were used to, people left before the cell phone era, and these days the local rickshaw puller does not have a house to stay in, but he has a cell phone. He understands a lot of things. People don't dirty public conveniences anymore. People use a lot of terms. Your maid in the house knows the difference between the mouse, the rodent, and the mouse and this mouse. So, all these things have changed, and people's knowledge has changed, the way they use language has changed. So all these things have a bearing on on how well we fit in, what we perceive of the language that we are expected to use in the country of expatriation and in our home country after a stint abroad has a bearing on how well we fit in. And in addition to language, we have communication styles, we have things that people may or may not feel comfortable with, we have perceptions, all of those things play a role. So we'll talk about that. Okay, what makes repatriation difficult? One is accepting change. We have a hard time accepting that things may have changed when we were outside the country. Everything is static, I am the same. No, I am not the same. I have changed. I have changed. My values may have been the same. My beliefs have changed. my openness, hopefully, if I've come back as a successful returnee, or if I've had a successful stint abroad, my view about things has changed considerably. And while I was away, things have changed back home also. One slightly painful example of this, but something that many of us can relate to, is that when we are away from our parents for a while, or if you're living in if you belong to a small town and you start working in a bigger town and you can't go back to your hometown for say 6 months, 8 months, a year maybe. What happens when you go back after a year? Even within India, the number of cars has increased, the number of buildings has increased, the number of wrinkles on your parents' faces has increased, the number of white hair they have has increased, the size of their medicine pouches has increased, the way they do things has changed, the maid's tantrums have increased. All of those things have changed. It's become much more difficult to find house help in that town, even within a span of 6 months or 8 months or a year. So why do we expect things to be the same when we go abroad? We don't want to accept that things have changed. Everything has changed. The number of channels that your parents can see on their television has increased while you were away. Your mother has started watching 2020 cricket when she had no idea when even one day cricket was popular or a 50 over match was popular. So all those things have changed, but we don't want to accept change. Role conflict, allegiance to home and host organization and training. We forget what role we are expected to play. And again, there's a conflict. Who do we relate to more? I was sent abroad on some activity. I was sent abroad for some work. Now, do I still stay with what I went abroad for, or do I come back and just take whatever I can use in my home country and throw away the rest of the learning I've had? And again, what role do I play? Am I still a foreign returned so-and-so, or am I a person who's trying to, who was always a part of the home culture? So that really creates a problem. Cultural identity, perceptions about what and who one was and will be upon return, anxiety regarding society's perceptions as to one being a failure, repatriation from high socioeconomic status to low, or success. So, there are perceptions about who you are, what you went abroad as, why did you go abroad. If you go from a low socioeconomic status to a higher socioeconomic status abroad and you decide to come back, the first question people ask you is, why did you not stay abroad? Why did you come back? Everybody stays there. Why did you have to come back from the United States? Why did you have to come back abroad, from abroad? And you feel like a failure. I came back because I missed home too much. No. Why did you come back? Why did you give up that cushy life and come back? And again, what you will be perceived as. You may have gone abroad to learn some things. You may not have learnt everything that you were expected to learn, or you may still be the same person. You've not imbibed enough of the foreign culture. You come back and you keep wondering, what are people going to be expecting of me when I land back in the home country? And so there are these perceptions, there are these anxieties regarding what and who one was and is in the home country. Then there are identity shifts: affirmative, subtractive, additive, and global. I'll explain these. What happens is, sojourners with affirmative identity shifts exhibited a greater appreciation of their local culture. This is based on a research paper that was published by Tambia and Ching in 2006. I'll give you the reference. Affirmative identity is when whatever you are is reinforced by the host culture. After you go abroad, you come back, whatever you believed about yourself there's an affirmation, there's an acknowledgement, it's reinforced, and people say, yes, you're great the way you are, we don't need you to change. Subtractive is, I had to give up something to be who I am today. I've had to give up something to be perceived as this successful person that people see me as today. Additive is, I've had to add on I was great the way I was, but I've had to add on this skill set, I've had to add on additional things. My new identity consists of these additional things that I've had to imbibe. And global is I am much more flexible. I can add on and subtract at will, and that doesn't affect me. So I'm more flexible to letting attributes come in or be attached to my identity and be removed from my identity depending on the situation. And that is the global identity. And identity shift is another issue that makes repatriation difficult. What do we identify with? Or where does our identity, where does our sense of identity lie? Is it affirmative? Am I still the same person? Am I still being regarded as the same person? Is my social circle the same? Is my office still the same? Is my role still the same? Or is it subtractive? Am I a little lesser than what I was when I went abroad? Or am I a little more? Am I at a higher position by virtue of this trip abroad? Or have I just become more flexible? Even within the same organization, depending on the situation, I can either say, okay, during my trip abroad, this is what I learned, this is what I took on. On another occasion, whatever I had even before I went on the trip can be given away, and I say, okay, only this much of me is required in this situation. So I can just fit in, and it doesn't really bother me either way. So all those things, again, how often do you have to shift your identity? Where does your sense of comfort lie really determines how easy or how difficult your repatriation is. Again, according to this paper, sojourners with affirmative identity shifts exhibited a greater appreciation of their local culture. You're appreciated the way you are. I am who I am. People like me the way I am. People accept me the way I am. People are comfortable with my attributes just the way they are. So this means that what I'm bringing from my home culture is good enough for any place. Okay. Sojourners with subtractive identity shifts expressed dissatisfaction with their quality of life after returning home. Your identity shifts from point A to point B, and point B is lesser. So what happens is, when you go abroad, people say, okay, in your home culture, this is something that was not so desirable. Why do you go by stretchable time? Why not standard time? You use standard time, you come back, you start following stretchable time again, and you feel, no, this is not right. Something's not right about this. And again, that's one example. Or if you do X amount of work, you will be rewarded in a certain way. You come back home and you say X amount of work is anyway expected of you. If you don't do it, you will be punished. But if you keep doing it, there is nothing additional that you will gain because of it. So you feel uncomfortable. You come back home, but there's always a dissatisfaction, and that dissatisfaction translates into your work. Sojourners with additive identity shifts shared examples of how they have appropriated various elements of their host cultures in terms of media consumption, adoption of new lifestyles, changes in value systems, etc. You come back and you feel you brag about the new things you have learned. You brag about you perceive yourself at a higher level because of this new identity that you have gained, because of these new traits that you have added on to your identity. So how they have appropriated various elements of their host cultures in terms of media consumption, new lifestyles you have taken in, you've changed some things, you've sort of become more than what you were when you went abroad, and that sort of adds to the satisfaction you experience upon your return home. Sojourners with a global identity shift attempted to recreate their own unique experiences. Excuse me. What happens is, if you have a global identity shift, you say, okay, my experience is not like anyone else's. I have a totally new kind of experience in itself. What I have experienced is a mixture of something that I've lost and something that I've gained, and it's fine. My experience is very, very different, and that's why you communicate accordingly, you deal with things accordingly, you create this whole new perception about your experiences when upon your return abroad. Work areas that are affected by repatriation adjustment. The first area in your work that is affected by repatriation adjustment is performance and turnover. Better adjustment leads to better performance, which leads to low turnover. You come back, you're better adjusted. And how are you better adjusted? You feel more comfortable in your skin, you contribute more, you're happy to be back, and you fit in well, your identity hasn't shifted much, logistics have been taken care of. We'll come to those factors in a minute. So that leads to better performance, that leads to low turnover. If your organization is helping you feel comfortable, why would you want to change the organization? They treat you, they treat the additional skills that you have gained with respect. You come back and you feel more comfortable with things. Job satisfaction upon repatriation is affected by the repatriates' view of the differences between their international job assignment and their assignment upon return to their home country. Excuse me. So, how the repatriates view the differences between their international job assignment and their assignment upon to their return home country. The differences between these assignments, you know, what have you gained after coming back? Usually what happens is we are sent abroad to learn new things. We learn new things and then we come back and we feel that we are missing out. Maybe the salary is less, maybe the work environment is different, maybe the motivation is different, maybe the people are not so comfortable to work with, maybe the logistic support is not that much. So depending on the difference between what you were getting when you were abroad and what you are getting after you have come back to your home country, what you view as this difference has a bearing on your job satisfaction in your home country after you return. Repatriates' view of the professional choices and career opportunities available to them upon their return home from a foreign assignment. This is, you know, one is the difference between what you have. The other is what else can I get by virtue of this trip abroad? What professional choices do I have? What career opportunities will I have when I come back home? Will they be more? Will they be less? And so all this has a bearing on how you feel about your current workplace. Organizational commitment is another one. How committed you feel to your organization is dependent upon how satisfied you feel with your trip abroad. It is dependent on how comfortable you have felt with your trip abroad and what you have gained through your trip abroad. And how committed you feel to your organization will in turn affect the turnover, the satisfaction you derive from your work, how connected you feel to the organization, how much faith you have in your organization regarding the fact that they will treat you well, and that will in turn affect your performance and your turnover. And all of these things are interrelated. If you see these things, they are all interrelated. Okay, expatriate failure and its impact on adjustment as a repatriate. So failure has been defined as lack of success in doing or achieving something, especially something that you are expected to do. When we talk about expatriate failure, we were talking about expatriate success till now. You've been doing great, you've done wonderful things, you come back home, your adjustment is affected. Now what happens is, if you're forced to come back home after having failed in some assignment, failure is defined as lack of success in doing or achieving something, especially something you are expected to do. And in the case of expatriation, negative, it has not, it generally has a negative connotation where the burden is put on the person himself or herself. You must have done something wrong. You must have done something that was not right, that was not expected of you. So, in the case of an expatriate, it is the inability of the expatriate or repatriate to perform according to the expectations of the organization. Again, there's a negative connotation attached. So it is your inability to perform according to the expectations that the organization has set. These are not your own expectations. So according to the organization, you may be a failure, but then in your own eyes, you should not be a failure, because many times many things are out of your control. The reality may be different, and there could be an end to the assignment that you have been sent there for. You did your best, but what could you do? The work that you were sent there for has finished, it's ended. There could be a change of the organizational structure or organizational situation, etc. I mean, and there could be political stuff, there could be other things, there could be a tsunami, there could be a whole bunch of things because of which your trip abroad has been cut short. I'll give you an example of a similar situation. When 9/11 happened, at that point, as always, there was a whole bunch of Indian organizations that had sent their employees to the United States for trainings and stuff. And I personally know of one instance, and I'm sure there were many, where the training was cut short by 3 weeks. It was a 6-week training. The training was cut short by 3 weeks, and these trainees were sent back home because of the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. And again, due to security reasons, they did not want too many foreigners in the country. So even the organizations that had organized these trainings decided to pull back their employees because of the problems that were coming up. Now, it's not your fault. These were trainees, but even if you were working over there, it's not your fault. But when you come back, people may or may not understand. They will still see some people who were left behind, and especially if you're going from a low socioeconomic status place to a high socioeconomic status area, they'll say, okay, what did you do wrong that you were sent back? This can be painful, and in terms of the expectations from your own self and the others, what you expect from your own self, what people expect from you as the expat in that region, that can make this transition very difficult, especially if you're sent back before your time. Perceptions about the others, perceptions about yourself. I mean, again, it's perception about a perception. What do I think people think of me? What do I think people think of my work in this organization? And what does so and so think? What will they say? What will these people say if I go back before my time? Repatriation adjustment depends on various factors. The first one here is individual. Could be predictive control or helplessness. Again, how much control you think you have over the situation. We were talking about expatriation failure and its impact. So, how you adjust as a repatriate depends on all of these things, especially if you're coming back before your time. And some factors that govern repatriation adjustment are: first one is individual factors. You could have predictive control. How much control you think you will have over the situation when you go back to your home country. How much control do you think you will have over your job when you go back to your home country? How much control do you think you'll have over your children's schools and their admissions, or over your spouse's employment, or over your health, or over your normal life? After all, it's uprooting yourself. When we talk about expatriation, we are not talking about sojourning. We are not talking about a trip abroad. We are talking about you having lived abroad for several months, several years, coming back, and wherever you start living, you have this sort of, you put yourself on autopilot. So your health systems is set, you have your own doctors, you have your own, in India you have your house help, you have your tailor, you have your vegetable vendor, you have your grocery shop, you have all of these things. And even though these things change with time, if you're living in a place, you don't really feel the transition. But when you come back after a stint outside your home country, it hits you in the face, because your vegetable vendor calls you and says, I've got the vegetable that you wanted, can I come and can I bring it to your house at 12 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 9 in the morning? I've been able to trace that. Or so your vegetable vendor calls you and says, do you want me to come today? So stuff like that. So all these things have changed and it hits you. So predictive control, how much control you think you will have over your situation. Will it be similar to the type of control you had before you left, or will it be different? How helpless do you feel in this situation? What do you think you know and what you actually know about the situation? So all of those things will have an impact on how adjusted you feel to your situation when you come back. Then the job and organizational role and role clarity or ambiguity, how clear you are about your role, in the organization or at your job, or as far as your own work assignment is concerned. Is it clear? Is it ambiguous? So all of those things, and of course non-work factors, issues related to your spouse, your family, your daily lives, your mode of transport, the rush, the traffic on the roads, the pollution in your city, the neighbors you have, the rules governing the parking of vehicles in your residential society, stuff like that. Okay, stages in repatriation. Before repatriation, you think about the motives, the factors that affect your knowledge of your preparation before repatriation are your knowledge of your motives for expatriation and repatriation, past experiences with expatriation and home, information and opportunities to stay in touch with home during the expatriation. How often have you been able to establish contact with your home country, with the people back home? Your motives, why did you go abroad, why did you decide to come back, what you were hoping to accomplish, all of those things. Past experiences, was it easy to transition into this new place? What is the difference between your home culture and your host culture? And these things impact your expectations from work, your expectations from your interpersonal interactions, and your expectations in general from the society around you. During repatriation, you have issues related to work and organization, you have non-work issues, and you could have training and support issues also. Some organizations will train you, will support you through these transitions, some will not. Repatriate experience is affected by pre-repatriation issues, which is this part, the before repatriation stuff. Experiences during repatriation, your experiences with your work and organization, with your non-work issues, family, children's school, spouses, employment, etc. Cultural identity changes, like we just talked about. Demographic factors, where you stay, temperatures, heat. I mean, you're coming from a very cold place to a very hot city like Delhi or Calcutta or Bombay, or so I mean, those climatic changes, the size of the house that you're living in, whether pets are allowed or not, you're wet. I mean, all of these things make a difference. So, or the distance from your parents' place to your place, the ease with which you get different connections, all of these things. So your repatriate experience is affected by all of these things. Stages in sojourner and repatriation adjustment, you have various stages. The first one is the honeymoon stage, where everything is hunky-dory, everything is beautiful. Then comes the hostility, when you start realizing, oh my god, this is how things are different. Then is the recovery, then you sort of settle down, I have no choice but to adjust. And then you sort of start adjusting, give and take happens. And then there is the reverse culture shock, So you go out, you adjust, and then you come back, and then you have a reverse culture shock and it hits you. It's more severe. Let's see what this is. Reverse culture shock really is the difference between your perceptions of what you left behind and the reality, and your experiences with what you left behind when you come back. So, it's that difference that hits you. The challenges are perceptions about and expectations from the homeland when you return. Perceptions about and expectations from significant others. The interpretations, they cannot be exactly similar to the ones before the stint abroad, because the stay abroad has added to the context. So your interpretations change. Others' perceptions about a foreign returned so-and-so, foreign returned employee, foreign returned cousin, foreign returned colleague, foreign returned this and that. The pace with which you do things, the time, lifestyle, values, communication styles that are preferred in different cultures, Language. Communicative lingerings is the interchange between L1 and L2. L1 means, again, it could be L3, L4, L5, but I'm just saying L1 maybe one language or the set of languages that you were used to using before you left, and L2 is the language or the accent that you used in your host country. So you bring some of those things back with you and they sort of linger on in your conversations. Alienation, difference between expectations and reality upon return. Reversion, denial regarding intra and extra personal changes that have taken place. I'm still the same, nothing has changed. So all of these things have these are the challenges to culture shock. These are the things that make culture shock more or less severe. How do you deal with reverse culture shock? Recognize and acknowledge what is happening, discuss issues with similar others, stay in touch with the other side even when you're outside the country, research the issues bothering you and look for solutions, be flexible and know that change is inevitable. Staying positive during repatriation, there are some coping strategies that have been suggested by Thompson and O'Sullivan 2002. You can engage in active attempts to change the work environment. You can also engage in active attempts to seek out information or get extra training. Psychological reappraisal is staying positive at all times. Psychological withdrawal, not really recommended when you try to keep your own feelings to yourself and think of a time when you're away from this situation. The organizational support that can be provided during repatriation is repatriation training before return can be given to you by your organization. They could provide you with logistical support, they could mentor you, and they could help you network during expatriation and repatriation. Now, I'd like you to discuss a few things for your next class. Why do people choose to go abroad and why do they choose to return to their home countries? How do these choices affect their communication competence in foreign countries and in their home countries? And what kind of challenges do culture and the uncertainty of the international business environment pose for repatriates or returnees to the home country? Think about these things and we will have some more discussion next time. Thank you.